everybody, my name is Susan and welcome to KNITLIB the podcast, my little corner of the YouTubes that's all about knitting and sewing and making and books and library stuff and blah blah blah. It's been a long time since my last episode, despite me saying I was going to post semi-regularly. Yeah, if you are a new viewer, hi and welcome. I hope you find something here that you can connect with. And if you're a returning viewer, hi. I'm sorry I suck at uploading all the time. I have a reason for that, and basically it's just I've been too busy. I got, in September, the date right now is October the 17th. It's a Thursday morning. Thursday morning before I head into work, actually, so I'm going to try to record this as quickly as I can. And but yeah, September I ended up with like the plague, essentially. I had a gastrointestinal virus that I picked up at a school from one of the library outreaches that I was doing, and as we all know, elementary schools are basically cesspools of germs and disease. So I blame that for why I got sick. And I wasn't sick for long, but it was like it kicked the wind right out of me. And it took like a good 2 weeks, maybe more, to actually recover from being that ill. And other than that, it's just been really hella busy. I work at a public library, and it's a very busy public library. And my job just keeps increasingly getting busier and busier, and I get home and I try not to get tired, but sometimes I do, and I have school stuff, and anyway, it all, in the big scheme of things, it does not matter one bit. And I thought this morning, it's a Thursday morning, it's overcast outside, and I have the whole morning here before I have to go in for my night shift, and I thought, you know, let's do some self-care and share some of the creative knitting projects and all that stuff that I've been working on since I last updated. I will be fully transparent though and say that I have recorded 2 other episodes aside from this one, so technically this would be episode 47. But I just never edited them or uploaded them, and I don't think I'm going to. I'm just gonna, you know, ignore those and then continue as if nothing happened. Yeah, we're just gonna continue as if nothing happened. So I have lots of things to share with you. I have some knitting, I have a little bit of sewing, I have some books to share as well, and maybe my kitty cat will make an appearance. I don't know if he will. We'll see. Yeah. But we'll begin with what I'm drinking here. I'm drinking a nice cup of really hot coffee, which is delightful, and this will be one of probably 5 cups of coffee that I drink today. What are you drinking right now? Is it coffee? Is it tea? Is it wine? Is it kombucha? Is it, I don't know, mead? That's a good fall drink, isn't it? Mead. I've never tried mead. Okay, we're not going on that tangent. Well, oh, and I guess we can start off with what I'm wearing today, actually, because I am verging on being entirely me-made. My whole wardrobe is getting pretty close to being me-made, and to be honest, most of the outfits I've been wearing in the last while have all been me-made. So whether they've been hand-sewn or they have been hand-knit, they've all been made by me, which is pretty good. Let me put my coffee, where am I going to put my coffee? I'll put my coffee over there. So I'm wearing, this is the Strata top by Sew Liberated, and if I can get up a little bit, it's a crop top, and it's especially cropped because the fabric that this is, it's a rayon, and I made the mistake of putting it in the dryer when I shouldn't have. And the problem with rayon when you wash and dry it is that you really need to air dry those suckers, because rayon will just go, it will shrink right up. So that's what happened to this, but it worked out my benefit because In the previous episode, I think I might have mentioned about how most of the sewing that I've been doing has been, I've been doing a lot of it, but I've been sewing the wrong size for myself. I've had this completely misguided interpretation of what my body size is, and everything has been too big. So it worked out, aside from it being a little short, but the fact that it shrank and the sleeves are a little tighter and everything, the neck feels a little bit better than it did before, that worked out my benefit. I'm also wearing, and I'll stand up here, you can kind of see, well, not really. These are, they're cropped pants. They have a slash pocket right here and panels going down. These are the high-waisted free-range slacks by Sew 7. I have made 2 pairs of these. This is my first pair that I've made, and it's made from a, let me lift up my knee here. It's made from a tangerine cotton linen blend that is slightly heathered. I love this fabric. I have been making so many things out of this fabric, and I picked it up at Rick Rack Textiles, which is the sister store to Stash Lounge, where is the yarn shop where I teach. They opened up a fabric store earlier this year, and they have some beautiful fabrics, and with a full range of prices. There's some really affordable stuff there, then there's some luxury fabrics too. This cotton linen is one of their like kind of staple fabrics, and I love it. It's so easy to sew with. I want to use it all the time, and it's cool in the summer and nice and warm in the winter, and I love wearing bright orange pants. It makes me so happy. And the free range slacks pattern, if you're into sewing pants, I would really recommend that pattern because it comes with 2 different views. I think one of them is a wide leg. I did the tapered leg, and I love it, and they're so wearable. They're so perfect for work, and because they're high-waisted and they're elastic, you can see the elastic waist right here. They're elastic waisted, so they're really comfortable and great for when you eat a loaf of bread for lunch, and it can expand to accommodate the bread baby. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. Let's get into some knitting. Let's take a drink. So I've been doing a lot of knitting since I have been away from the podcast. Against my better judgment too. It's one of those things when you're super, super busy and you have all of these other things that you know you have to do, but you just procrastinate or avoid them. That's me. That's all of my knitting projects get done because I'm stressed out or anxious about something. I don't know about if I'm positive that other people are like this too. So that's another reason why I sew so much as well. I had a question on my Instagram. I put up one of the question box things and it was like, ask me anything, so I was kind of bored. And someone had asked how I managed to get so much stuff done, and the secret to that is I don't clean, and I don't do other things. So when normal people would probably be like taking care of the house or whatever, like, you know, cleaning the toilet or I don't know, going grocery shopping or something, I'm just gonna sit in the corner and eat popcorn and drink pot after pot of coffee while knitting. That's what I'm gonna do. So that's the only way that I've been able to get as much, or it looks like I've been able to get as much done as I have, because I don't do anything else. It's just that. So I'm gonna share some of the finished objects that I have, and then I'm going to share some of the works in progress. So in the last episode, I was working on a second Ursa sweater. Pretty sure I was working on this, and I finished it. So, and it's covered in fluff. as per my natural state. The Ursa sweater is by Jacqueline Cieslak, and it's a cropped, bulky weight, or chunky weight rather, sweater that has a low V-neck and brioche. I don't know if you can see the brioche detailing on the bottom that ends up like a triangle. Here's the back. This is my second Ursa sweater, and I love this one. And the first one that I knit, I did it with holding 2 strands of DK weight yarn together. So it ended up being very bulky and squishy and lovely. It's a perfect layering piece for the fall, like cold weather. We've already, in Calgary, where I'm coming to you from, we've already had like 2 snowstorms. So, and I think the temperature a couple of weeks ago reached -15 Celsius. So it's already been cold here. And the Ursa sweaters are proving to be perfect for an underlayer underneath my denim jackets to keep my chest warm. And this is no exception. What I love about this version of the sweater that I did is that it's a little bit more neutral in that it's a solid color. It's not marled like my other one was. And because I knit with just 1 single strand, I knit with the Cascade Eco Wool. It's a lot lighter. It's like super light, and which makes it great for wearing inside. This sweater is awesome for wearing over dresses, for wearing with high-waisted pants. And I know some people, I was chatting with some people and they were asking about the neckline and if I found the neckline too wide. And I don't. The neckline's fine. When you knit this pattern, it's knit from the top down, excuse me, and then the neckline is picked up after the fact, and the edging, you can kind of see, it has this really lovely edge that looks like a rolled edge because the sleeves you don't do any treatment to, you just cast off knitwise and you get the same kind of rolled edge there. So the neckline is the same way, where you're picking up the stitches and then casting off immediately. If you're knitting this pattern and you find that the neckline is a little wide or a little loosey-goosey, you can knit that, like do the finishing of the neckline tighter to kind of pull it in, and it does help. So that's what I did with mine. I did knit it a little bit tighter and it's great. I'm gonna put it on so you can see. Yeah. So it's a great cropped kind of sweater. I love it. I wear it to work all the time, and I really enjoy it. It's nice and warm. I'm going to take it off because it's not cold in here. It's kind of warm actually. And this thing does heat me up. The one thing about this sweater, which makes it tricky to wear with some of the garments that I have now, this shirt notwithstanding, is that the sleeves are fairly tight. And because the sleeves are so fitted, it makes it a great like form-fitting sweater, and it like bells out a little bit on the bottom because of the brioche. Some of my dresses and tops, they're really boxy, and the sleeves, especially some of them, my sleeves are quite wide, so they don't fit inside the sweater, which is a little disappointing and a little awkward when I'm trying to like fold the sleeve into my knit sleeve, and it's usually not that big of a deal unless I'm layering to go out of the house, and then wherever I'm going I end up taking off my sweater anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I really think that I need to knit a cardigan is what I need to do. I'm gonna take this off. I've been knitting all sorts of pullovers and everything, and I love cropped pullovers, but with all of the dresses that I've been sewing, I really need to make a cardigan. Or sew a cardigan, one or the other. I haven't decided. But but that will have to happen because I think, yeah, just for another layering piece as things get colder. And especially, like, I was going to get a winter jacket this year, a new winter jacket, but I think I'm gonna take my current winter jacket and stretch it for one more winter. If only because purchasing a new winter jacket in the length that I need and the weight that I need a jacket that can withstand about minus 30 degrees Celsius because I walk all the time. It's gonna cost me like $300 to $400 for that jacket. So we're just gonna put that off another year, I think, and make up for it by wearing all of the sweaters. And it would be so much easier to layer if I had a cardigan going over top. I have a couple of cardigan patterns in mind, but if you have a favorite layering cardigan pattern, whether they are a sewing pattern or a knitting pattern, if you could let me know, that'd be awesome. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, so Ursa sweater, done. I have another finished object that was just finished that I'm going to share with you. The next finished project that I have was a bit of an impulsive cast on, really. I had initially used the yarn to cast on the Arachne sweater by Andy Satterland, and I was knitting away at the yoke, and that pattern is a top-down yoked sweater that has a spider web that goes across it. My intent was that I wanted to have a Halloween sweater. So I started doing it, and then I was watching Tommy of Squirrel Pie Productions, and one of her previous podcast episodes, she and I was knitting on the sweater as I was watching it, and she was talking about how she was knitting the sweater and she screwed up the chart, and then I'm looking at it going, oh shit, I've screwed up the chart too. So yeah, with that pattern there are, unfortunately, I think the pattern itself, they could have afforded to, like Andy Satterland should have put the two charts together, I think, as one chart, because I'm wondering how many people did what Tommy and I did and just knit one chart the entire way through. And the reason that there are two different charts for the spider web is so that the spider web is not completely uniform the entire way. One of the patterns one of the charts goes down a little bit further, I think, to give the illusion that it is a bit more of a natural spider web. So that was kind of frustrating, and rather than rip it out and start again, I just decided to rip the whole thing out. And I'm looking at the yarn and thinking, like, the yarn that I was using, it was Mineville Wool Project DK. It's a superwash merino. And one of my favorite yarns, and it's a budget yarn too, here in Canada. And it was a little too heavy for the Arachne sweater, and because the Arachne sweater calls for sport weight, and I was using DK, but I thought I'd be able to get away with it if I was knitting a smaller size and using a slightly bigger needle. I thought it would like all even itself out, and which I'm sure it would have. But I thought, you know, there's better use of this yarn. I'm going to show you the yarn here. This is Mineville Wool Project right here. This yarn comes from Atlantic Canada. It is small batch indie dyed yarn done by a fleece artist, and they do a whole series of budget yarns. So the yardage on them is pretty good. The colors are beautiful. It's a hard wearing yarn. I have a couple of garments made out of this yarn, or like the sock weight version of this yarn, and they hold up really well, and so I love that. And then the other yarn, I don't have anything left of it. It's like a yellow color. I can see it. I can see the leftover ball on the other side of the room, and I'm not going to go get it. But that was the yarn I used. And rather than the Arachne sweater, I decided to cast on, and this one's finished. It's still a little bit damp because I had put it in the bath last night to block it, so I'm hoping it'll dry and I can wear it tomorrow or later today. This is the Ripple Crop Top Worsted by Jessie May. And yeah, I striped it. So I made a striped ripple crop top. This pattern is from Jessie May, or of Jessie Made Designs, and she's all the rage right now. So if you're on the Instagrams, following all the knitting stuff, everybody's knitting Jessie May's stuff. I think she gained a lot of popularity with the ripple bralette, the little bra. That is such a good pattern. Her patterns are very beginner friendly. This crop top is super simple to do. It's knit from the bottom up until you get to about where the armholes are, and then she has you separate for the front and the back. You knit those separately, and then you knit the back separately. Then you do a 3-needle bind off at the shoulder seams right here, and then pick up for the sleeves around. This went really, really fast, and I think the benefit of, well, not the benefit, one of the reasons why I think this went so fast for me is because I was striping it. And this also made it really easy to, for doing the shoulders, like the front panels right here, it made it really easy to count how long things would be because it's striped. I found the same thing for the Mount Pleasant tee when I made that, because that's also striped, and I found instead of having to count the rows or pull out my ruler and measure however many inches, I just counted how many stripes I did, and it worked out really well. I really love this, and now that it's blocked, it looks a little less ridiculous than it originally did because it's a total 3x3 rib the entire way. It cinches in completely. This sweater is designed to have a lot of negative ease and for it to be cropped. I haven't put it on since I've blocked it. I know when I originally put it on, it was a little short, and I was a little concerned that I might not be able to get away with wearing it at work, which is where I want to wear it. I don't mind wearing cropped things and baring my midriff. That doesn't bother me, but it does, like in my everyday non-work scenario, I don't care. I'm pretty body positive, body confident, but at work, even this, like the fact that it's low, makes me a little nervous to wear it at work too, because I don't like exposing too much stuff at work, because I'm mostly working with children and I bend over a lot, and I don't like, I have to wear like a tank top or something underneath just to kind of cover me up a bit because it makes me feel a bit more comfortable. You don't want to give it all away. I mean, really. That was stupid. So yeah, this shirt is super cute. My idea, it's still going to be a Halloween shirt. You can see sort of orangey marigold colors. I'm going to wear it with, I have a couple of Halloween skirts I bought a couple of years ago that I think I haven't tried them on since my body changed, and I think they still fit. I should try. I should try to see if they still fit. Otherwise, I'll probably just wear it, make another purple skirt or something and wear it with the purple skirt, and this will be really cute. I could not recommend this pattern enough. I loved making it, and it's good, what I like to call dumb knitting. It's good dumb knitting because it doesn't require too much brain power. So jumping off of, putting that over there for it to dry, jumping off of how pleased I was with the Ripple crop top worsted, I have made another Ripple crop top, or I'm making another Ripple crop top worsted. It's living in a new project bag that I made right here. And I'm going to talk about this fabric and all that stuff in a little bit, but this is the, what is it called? The medium-sized knot bag by Indigo Bird Designs. It's a paid for pattern you get from her Etsy shop, and she has a whole series of patterns that you can sew. I love them because what's really amazing about them is that she's licensed them so that you can make them and actually sell them. So that's kind of awesome. Not that I have any intent of selling anything, because I don't got time for that. But I made it out of the leftover bits of fabric from a project I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But let's show you my work in progress on my second ripple crop top, which I cast on yesterday. So I cast on using, because I had multiple skeins of, you know, the Mineville worsted, or not worsted, Mineville Wool Project DK. I have like 3 more skeins or 2 more skeins. I have this one and one other skein, because the idea was to make like a full-size sweater originally. And the crop top, worsted crop top for the size that I'm making only really takes 2 skeins of worsted weight or DK weight yarn. So I'm gonna mosey through this one, and I've paired it with, I'm striping it again, but I have paired it with something kind of spectacular. You can kind of see here, I've paired it with the, where'd it go? Where? Oh, I have like a little pile of stuff next to me. I've paired it with the Melted Surrey by King Fibre, right here. This is a 65% baby Surrey alpaca, 25% superwash merino, 10% silk. This is a ridiculous yarn. I had originally purchased 2 skeins of this to work in a shawl, but then decided against doing that. So I've just had it sitting there on my shelf, and I thought, you know what? I think this will look pretty snazzy with the black-gray tonal worsted weight yarn, and striping it gives this great textural kind of thing. And for the crop top, I am knitting a size bigger than I did before, just to allow for a bit of positive ease in it, and I'm going to knit it longer. So the intent being that it can hopefully be like a layering top, or fit, maybe not like the Strata top, but like kind of that drapey. I want it to be a little drapey. So I'm knitting 1 size up from what I did before, and I'm loving it so far. It's great. And the Surrey alpaca, I think knitting an entire garment out of this would be as expensive as hell, because this yarn is not cheap, but it'd also be hella warm and kind of shedding all over the place. So to make this yarn go farther, I'm striping it with the black DK, and I'm thrilled. I'm really excited about it. It is a little tricky to knit with, especially when you're striping, because the yarn is so fuzzy that it can be tricky to figure out where exactly your needle is supposed to go. And because the yarn is so fuzzy, the stitch definition is like non-existent, which is fun. I think it's fun, and I think this entire sweater is going to be completely silly and fun and great, and it's gonna be a staple for the winter, I think. And I'm gonna keep the sleeves short. I'm gonna still do short sleeves, because at work I have to wear like a uniform vest thing, and that gets quite hot after a little while. And as much as I like to be nice and cozy, I need to be able to regulate my heat somehow, so having short sleeves tends to help. So yeah, that's the knitting projects I'm working on right now. I have some other things I need to finish and all that stuff, but I'm focusing on the ripple crop top because it is quick to do and pretty mindless, so it makes it good for reading and for doing other things. I'm really enjoying it. But I thought I would share, before I get into sewing and all that stuff, I thought I would share some recent acquisitions that I have. One of them is just a solar dyeing project that I did, and so I have new yarn for that. And another is some more yarn that may turn into a ripple crop top. Maybe. I don't know. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this magic skein of yarn right here. Look at this. This is a superwash merino nylon fingering weight base. I can't remember the brand. I don't remember the brand at all. But it's solar dyed using, and I did this, I solar dyed it. And this is really fun because what I did is I didn't pre-treat the skein at all. I'm going to open it up so you can see. It's quite lovely. I love it. I really, really love it. I think I might knit a pair of socks with it, maybe? I don't know. But what I did is I took the skein and I didn't pre-wash it, I didn't scour it, I didn't do anything. I just took the entire thing and I don't even know if I unraveled it. Like, I think I just took it while it was wound in the hank and shoved it into a jar and then filled the jar with hot water and vinegar, and then poured some stock solutions over top of it. They were leftover mixed dyes from one of my yarn painting workshops that I do at Stash. And yeah, this is what I do with the trying to reduce waste and all that stuff. With the leftover dye, I will bring my own skeins in and solar dye them in the window. So that's pretty fun, and that's what I did with this. And the color, I used basically all of the colors that the students were using that were in the red family or oranges or purples or anything. I poured them into the jar. And not agitating the jar at all. And as a result, it all absorbed in slightly different areas. There's some white space still left. There's some white space there. But the result is fantastic. And I solar dyed it first for probably like, I put all of the dyes in there, and then it was in the window for probably about a month. And then I did another class, and rather than rinsing this out, I just took more dye and poured it on top. I think, what did I do? I dumped out the dye that was in there and then added even more dye. Like not the dye, it was the exhausted water. So there was no dye left in there. It was all in the skein. But I refilled it and then added more dye on top of it. So the result is this really layered skein that I don't think I could have achieved as easily otherwise. I'm really into it. It worked out really well. So yeah, I'm thinking I might do a pair of socks with this, just because this yarn, and I can't remember the base at all because I had a couple of skeins of it, of just like this bare yarn. It's really good for socks. I had I solar dyed some neon green stuff with it, and I made some Rose City rollers, and they're awesome. They feel great. Hi, Pussycat. Here. So we have that. Then we also have two other skeins here that I picked up from Rosebud River Fibre Mill. And so this is an Alberta yarn. It's processed in Rosebud, Alberta. These are 100% Corriedale wool. The colorway is called Tobacco Leaf, and it's a DK weight, and it's about 330 meters per 100 grams. I got two skeins because the idea is it might be another crop top, or I might use it to make a shawl. We'll see. I've been kind of gathering up my DK and worsted weight shawl patterns. And there's a couple that I'd love to try doing. One of them is Andrea Mowry came out with a new pattern, new shawl pattern recently that's like a DK worsted weight, or maybe it's an Aran weight. Either way, I think it'd look pretty in this. We'll see. I love this yarn. The colorway is, this would be good for the glorious gold along for Dundernit. It's such a good color, and it kind of like goes with my hair. This is like, I don't know what it is about redheads and gold. We're all about this stuff. Yeah, I love this color. And the yarn itself, you can see it's 2-ply, but it has like a hand spun quality to it. I'm really excited to knit with it because it's probably going to be slightly thick and thin. There are little bits of plant matter inside, which I kind of really love. I kind of love that. I'm excited about this yarn. It's beautiful. Yay! So I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's going to be something. And I got this from the trunk show that Rosebud River Fibre Mill did at Stash a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I purchased it against probably my better judgment, but I just couldn't say no to this color. It was just so nice. It's just such a nice color. And it's really hard to achieve like gorgeous tonals and stuff on non-superwash yarn because the superwash qualities, the superwash process of merino wool will, because it basically like plasticizes the yarn essentially. It makes it so good for indie dyers because the dyes will shatter. I think that's the term that a lot of dyers use, it shatters. So that's how you can have speckles happening, how you can get these great color variations. Like you have that happen like in here. You can't do that as easily with non-superwash yarn. It just doesn't do it. Yeah, so I'm excited about this one. Yahoo! All right, coffee break, coffee break, coffee break. Get a coffee break. Did you enjoy your break? Coffee break? Coffee break? I refilled my coffee and then had to hide the cat in another room because he was getting into shenanigans, and I only have a limited time to do this and don't want to deal with him ruining all of the things by throwing everything on the floor and making a huge racket. Yes, we're going to come to the sewing part of this episode, and yeah, I have lots of things to share with you for sewing, but I'm only really going to share maybe 2 things, just because I don't have all day, and you don't have all day. I encourage you, if you're not following me on Instagram, feel free to follow me there. I post a lot about the sewing projects I'm doing on Instagram, so if you want to I don't know, if you're curious and want to be in the loop with that stuff, feel free to follow me on Instagram. I will occasionally do outfit of the day posts and talk about the me-mades I'm wearing for that day. Yeah, so one of my favorite me-mades that I've done very recently is another York Pinafore. I've been making the York Pinafore now for probably about a year, and this most recent one that I've done is the best one I've done so far. So I will insert a video at some point of my York Pinafore out and about in a little bit, but I'll tell you a little bit about the pattern. So the York Pinafore is by Helen's Closet. She's a independent sewing pattern designer out of Vancouver, I'm pretty sure. And her patterns are lovely. They're very beginner, intermediate, sewist friendly. And the York Pinafore is really easy to make. And I've made a lot of them, but what makes this recent make the best is that, my best one yet, is that for a couple of reasons. One of them being, I think my sewing skills have greatly improved since I've been sewing a lot. And I chose the exact perfect fabric for this pattern. I chose a sort of medium to heavyweight wide wale corduroy, which has a lot of structure to it, and it was so great to sew with. And the Pinafore option, the pocket option I did was the kangaroo pocket, and the heavyweight corduroy holds the structure so well that I can put my phone, I can put all sorts of things in that pocket and it's not going to drag the entire Pinafore down. This Pinafore is the first one I've made with the new size range that Helen's Closet came out for this pattern. Now, Helen's Closet, along with a lot of other independent sewing designers and knitting designers for that matter, are expanding their size range to be more inclusive of different body types, which is amazing. And take a drink of coffee. My throat is going. And as a result of that size range expansion, what that means for the York Pinafore is that it was originally, when I started making it originally, it was just like these generic sizes where you'd have like a small, medium, large, extra large, and say the large would fit a size range between 12 and 14 or, something like that. And that was fine, but because it would fit this range of sizes, you had to alter it, or at least I had to alter it in order to make it fit the way that I wanted it to fit. And so the pattern that I had, like cut out and everything, which ended up being like the wrong size for me anyway now, but I had to alter it a lot in order to get it to fit where I wanted it on my hip and all that stuff. So I was very pleased when I did the new pattern and cut out the new size that I needed, and I didn't have to make any adjustments. It like fit perfectly, and I'm really stoked about it. And yeah, the other thing that made this pattern even better and why I love to wear it so much is that I picked up a bias tape tool to make my own double fold bias tape, because I hate making bias tape, and this little tool makes everything so much faster and so much easier. And I strongly recommend, if you are a sewist or getting into sewing, pick up a bias tape tool. It'll change your life. And I know you can get like little bias tape kits and stuff too, where they have the different sizes of the tool. I only just bought the stuff to make 1-inch bias tape, so double fold bias tape, because that's the type of bias tape I use the most. Yeah, and it's blew my mind, and I love the way that Pinafore turned out. I'm going to make another one. I picked up similar fabric to that brick colored corduroy in sort of like a bluey gray, and I'm really stoked about it. Earlier I had shown you the project bag that I made, this right here. So this is actually the fabric that I made the Pinafore out of, and then the lining in this bag, you can see here, that's actually the bias tape that I used for the Pinafore as well. So I guess if I was to, I could walk around wearing my Pinafore while holding my coordinating project bag. I have not done that yet. But yeah, I love this fabric so much. And this project bag, which is the other most recent make that I've made, because I was trying to make a scout tee using some stash fabric I have, and I kept screwing it up, and I ended up ruining the entire thing. And rather than feel completely defeated, I decided to make something that's kind of a fail-safe thing for me, which is these knot bags. And they take, you can make one in under an hour, and they're awesome. And the medium size fits like a small knitting project perfectly. So I have in here the two skeins, 2 balls of yarn for my ripple crop top worsted, plus the pattern, plus some scissors, plus a little notions tin in there too, and it's great. And then on the, I have one of my favorite enamel pins here that says not perfect, because if you'll look closely to this thing, it is not perfect, and nothing I do is perfect. So yeah, there we go. Coffee time. Next on my kind of sewing docket, my wish sewing that I will get to eventually, is doing another Wiksten shift dress. So that's by the pattern company Wiksten. The shift dress is just this sort of boxy, lovely dress that has gathers in the back, and I made one recently out of a brown cotton linen, the same stuff that my pants are made out of, but in this lovely chestnut brown, and I love it. I love it, and I love wearing it without a belt so that it looks like a giant potato sack. And you can get away with wearing potato sacks as long as you make the right size potato sack. So when you're making your potato sack dresses, just make sure that you're making the right size, and then you're going to look amazing. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I'm like filled with burps this morning. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the Wiksten dress, I made one. I didn't have enough fabric to do the full, not full length, but like the longer length version. So I just made the short length version, and it fits me like a tunic. I'm more comfortable wearing leggings with it, especially when I'm at work, because the nature of it, it's kind of boxy like the Strata top. When you lift your arms up, it rises up a fair bit. So with a boxy shift dress, that means you run the risk of exposing your butt, which is not the best thing in most scenarios. But yeah, the brown dress that I made, I love it so much, and I would wear it all the time. And I have some other cotton linen fabric that I'm going to whip together to make some more versions of it. And I do want to make the long version. The long version has slits on the side to make it easier to walk, and plus a lovely little tie. And that's going to be my next make. I don't know if I'm going to do short sleeves or long sleeves with it. I think it just depends on how much fabric I have. I'm also thinking about, because that pattern, if you've made this pattern, let me know. But the pattern, it comes in so many different pieces, and the idea is that you can kind of mix and match stuff to either make the top or the like tunic dress or the longer dress. And I thought about how much fun it would be to make that dress entirely out of scraps, and that each pattern piece be a different, piece of fabric. So that might be on my to-do list when I'm looking at all of the different cotton linens that I have. I might even pick up like small amounts of cotton linen the next time I'm at Rick Rack. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty fun. So that's probably the next dress that I'm going to make. And maybe, yeah, I have some other fabric that need to get made into other things too, but I just haven't decided what. And my problem when it comes to sewing is that if you jump in without, like when you're too excited, I tend to make mistakes if I'm going too quick. So I have to remember to slow down. Yeah. Anyway, that brings us to the last segment of this episode, which is all about books, because I am a librarian and I like to think I read a lot. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Let me get the books. here. Move everything out of the way. Okay. The first book that I'm going to give a little book recommendation is I finished listening to it as a audiobook, and it is, who's it by? Let me see. There we go. The book is called The Binding, and it's by Bridget Collins. And I listened to this book on the app Scribd, Scribd, not a sponsor or anything, just a fan. Scribd is a subscription service that has streaming audiobooks on it, and it's pretty awesome. Kind of like the Netflix of audiobooks and ebooks. So yeah, I was listening to that book, and I became obsessed with it. I sometimes, well, most of the time when I'm looking for new books to read, I either go by the cover or I just read the bare minimum of what the book is about, like the very bare minimum. And so that when I'm reading it, listening to it, I am genuinely surprised when plot twists happen and all that stuff. So that's what I did with The Binding. I decided I wanted to listen to, I've been listening to so much chick lit and contemporary romance. I had, before that, I recently read the first book in a series by Sarah MacLean, and the book was called, what was it called? Wicked and the Wallflower is what it was called. Wicked and the Wallflower, historical romance by Sarah MacLean. I really enjoyed it, and it's been a while since I've read historical fiction, and so I ended up getting this kind of feel for it. I was like, oh, well, I want to read historical fiction now. It's like I don't care if it's romance. I just want to read historical fiction. So I found The Binding. It takes place late 19th century, I guess, and it's a gothic, very gothic fantasy, magical realism, historical fiction. It has a LGBTQ storyline with it. The premise of the book, without giving too much away, because I want to leave a big surprise for you, just like it surprised me if you decide to read it. But what really grabbed me with this book is that it takes place in a world where there are two different kinds of books that exist. There are real books and fake books. Fake books are like novels, works of fiction, things that people have made up. Real books are created by binders that are basically, the real books are made up of the memories of people who have experienced trauma that want to forget something. So say if you've experienced something very traumatic, you've gone through a breakup, you're incredibly upset, you just want to forget that it happened. You would go to a binder, and the binder would listen to you tell your story, and as a result of the binder listening to you, they would remove that memory from you and place it into a book. And as long as that book stayed in one piece and was not destroyed, you would never remember that memory. You would no longer have that memory, and the memory lives in that book and it gets hidden away. You would not even be able to read the book. Anything to do with that memory is just completely wiped away from you. So the main character, one of the main characters in this book, his name is Emmett. It turns out that he's a binder, and you're born a binder. It's not a skill that you learn. You're born this way with this magical ability to remove people's memories and to place them inside books. And it kind of follows, the story is told in three parts, first from Emmett, and then it jumps in time for the second part. And then the third part is told from the perspective of one of the other main characters, Lucien. And it's really good because it kind of talks a little bit about storytelling and memory, and what do we do with what we do with trauma, and how what happens when our stories are abused. And yeah, it's a really, really, really great book. I would say that a content warning with that is there is some sexual content in it. It's not extreme, but there is some sexual content, and there is also recollections of sexual abuse, and there is there's violence in there as well. That being said, it's not extreme, but it's something that if you find that stuff hard to read about, I just want you to know, full stop, that kind of content is in this book, so you should know. Yeah, I really love the book, and the reason I loved it as the audiobook is because the narrator for it, and I can't remember his name, but he speaks so, like, the way he reads the story is so measured and slow that you cannot help but get wrapped up in what the story is and the story he's telling. I have a tendency when I read, I get too excited and I read very fast, and then I miss things. What I loved about this audiobook is that it forced me to stop, to slow down, and to really listen to what I was listening to, to really hear or listen to what I was hearing. I really, really loved it, and would recommend it to anybody that likes historical fiction, that enjoys fantasy, but not world building. Like, if you don't like, I'm not a fantasy person in that I've tried to read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I just can't do it. Like, that's too fantasy for me. But the binding just has small little elements of fantasy in there, and it's great. So I would strongly recommend that. I think it's a good read for this time of year, because most of it takes place in the late fall and in the winter. So I think it's a great seasonal read for sure. Another drink of coffee. The next book that I'm currently reading, and I'm not very far along in it, I'm like almost at the halfway mark, and I'm reading it as a book, which does not happen that often, but I need to take a break sometimes. And this is a new book called This Little Light, and it's by Lori Lansens. She's a Canadian author currently living in California. I think that's where, yeah, she's currently living in California. I saw this book on our new paperbacks display at work at the library, and picked it up without really reading too much. Well, no, this is how much I read. Like, right in the beginning, and then I stopped reading, and I'm like, yep, that sounds good. I read Taking Place Over 48 Hours in the Year 2023. This is the story of Rory Ann Miller on the run with her best friend, both accused of bombing their posh Californian high school during a chastity ball. So all I read was that one sentence, and then I'm like, yep, that sounds good. Let's give it a read. And it's pretty addicting so far. It's written kind of in spurts, as if the main character, Rory, is like she's compiling all of this writing for her blog, but posting it after the fact that everything happens. So it's kind of interesting, and I don't really know what's happening in it. In the book, the main characters, Rory and her friend Fee, are quite literally on the run in California. They're hiding, and she's recounting, Rory is recounting all of the stuff from her childhood, like her parents divorcing, what a dick her dad is, and then also talking about the politics of California at this time in like 2023. And what's freaky is that, 2023 is not that far away. It's like, what, 5 years away? Yeah, no, I can do math. It's 4 years away. Um, so it's not that far away. And when they're talking about this, like, it's in a world, like a reality where abortion is illegal and extreme fundamentalist Christianity is on the rise. There's lots of violence. The conservatives are in power. The like ultra conservatives are in political power. Does this all sound familiar? Yeah. So I was a little worried when I started to read this because I'm like, oh great, am I basically reading A Handmaid's Tale or some Margaret Atwood stuff? And unpopular opinion, but I actually don't really like Margaret Atwood. Don't at me about that. But yeah, she's not my biggest fan, she probably is not my biggest fan, but I'm not her biggest fan. And I was a little concerned that this was going to be verging on Handmaid's Tale territory, but so far it's not. So far it's just like this sort of thriller, coming of age story, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I've kind of been reading it in spits and spurts, mostly before I go to bed. So I managed to read like 6 pages and then I end up falling asleep. But I'm enjoying it so far, and I look forward to telling you more when I'm done. All right, that brings us to the end, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this little update, and I hope it will not be too long before I update you again with the projects I'm working on and all that stuff. I hope that the next little while is restful for you, productive in the however way you gauge productivity. And I hope that you knit all the things, make all the stuff, and drink all the fall drinks, and yeah, keep being magic, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye!